So this video is all about experimental photography techniques, and it's just about playing, having fun, not being scared to take risks. And very often when you apply these techniques, you never really know what the outcome's going to be, but it's just about trusting your instincts, being completely engaged with what you're doing and just going with it. So I want you to follow these photography techniques and think about how your students or yourself could start to use some of these techniques as sort of development ideas. But it is very much about just having fun, taking risks, being playful and not being scared to make mistakes. So let's jump in. So the first technique I want to introduce is a really simple technique, and it's called sliced images. Well, you slice an image and you can just use a guillotine, and then you can combine two images together. So this image here, created by Flavie, she's got a base photo, which is this, which is the girl, and then she's sliced this other picture and based this on top. And then this creates this sort of lovely kind of motion within the images. You can also do this effect in Photoshop, and you can use the frame tool. And again, I've got a short little video demo using the frame tool. So if you don't have access to a guillotine, then use Photoshop. But if you do have a guillotine or just a cutting mat and a sharp knife, then you can just slice and combine your images together. And here I've got a variety of artists that I recommend who have used this technique in their work, and it creates some really strong images, and you can find a lot of these artists quite easily on Pinterest. So the next technique is called tearing. So it's the sort of tearing and combining images. So this is produced by Tom, and he's combined 2 or 3 different images here, and then he's just torn them. So you get this lovely sort of crude edge, quite organic, which works really well against the sort of manufactured architecture of this sort of structure of this big power station. So you get this lovely contrast, and it's a good way to sort of start peeling layers underneath. So you see portraits, sometimes they might combine 2 different portraits together. And again, here I've got some really lovely artists here that you can look at their work, and you can follow them on Pinterest, and some of them also have Instagram feeds too. So this technique is all about cutting and pasting images together and doing it by hand. Now this image here was created by an ex-student of mine, Valentina, and I have to say Valentina was extremely meticulous. So she's very, very patient and carefully cut all these sections out. And I love the combination here, the black and white and then the colour coming through. So this is all about just taking your time and actually physically constructing new compositions by hand. So it could be anything, it doesn't have to be portraits, it could be buildings, landscapes, whatever you wish. And then here I've got a selection of artists that have used this technique as well. A lot of fashion photographers, designers, image makers have used this technique, and it works really well. Similar to the previous, but this is more about cutting out silhouettes. So this is one of my previous students, Harry, and here he's removed the identity of the model, and then he started to piece in little sections of tissue paper as well, and this works really well. And again, some of these artists use this idea of using silhouettes. Paul Butler especially, who's produced some really lovely work. So again, that silhouettes, you can start to make you think about memories as well. So it's a lovely technique to use. This has become more and more popular, this idea of sort of cutting out geometric shapes and then cutting into your photos and peeling back pieces of paper as well, so it becomes slightly sculptural. So this technique was created by Rao, and these are two artists. Julie Cockburn especially uses this technique, so this can work really well, and I think this works well with these sort of geometric shapes against this sort of netting and structure across the portrait. This is a really simple technique but really effective, and again this is Valentina who just carefully composed this image, and it's multiple sections of the same image that creates a sort of repetition. And this artist here, he uses this within his work, and again it just really creates a sense of motion and movement. There's a real energy, it makes it very dynamic. This technique here is just about folding and creasing your images and restructuring to create this new sort of composition. So Valentina's used this image here, and these artists, and I know Fiona Taylor especially, she does a lot of work where she folds and restructures pictures, and so does Nigel Tom as well. So it's very sort of playful. So it's all about experimentation, all right, just having fun with these ideas. This technique here is created by Dominic, and here he's used the red stitching, and this sort of combines really nicely with all the telephone wires and works really effectively. So you can effectively draw when you're sewing and stitching into your images. And again, there's a whole variety of artists that use this technique, and it's become more and more popular, and I think it's good to physically take your time and stitch and draw with the thread, and it's just creates some really interesting work. Now this has been created on Photoshop, and this is the glitching effect that's become more and more popular. So this is where you alter the RGB and then you overlay a different section, so you get this sort of crossover effect. But it's really effective, so the glitching effect is really cool. Now adding text to images as well. So this student here, Louisa, produced this really beautiful piece where she's just used Photoshop and she's just added text, and this was text from lyrics of the song, and then she's beautifully combined it with the composition of the model there, so it works really well. This image was created by Rao, and Scannography. And I love Scannography because you never quite know what you're going to get. It's really playful, and you literally put your image on the photocopier, move it across the glass as you press the button, and you can get these lovely weird distortions. So you can see here where the eyes have been sort of elevated and extended, and the lovely sort of flow with the hair. So it's a really fun, playful technique. And this, again, this is Valentina's work. So this idea of drawing on top of images, just directly drawing, painting, and then you can create these sort of lovely effects. So she's just kind of created this repeating pattern with the blue lines, and it fits and it works really well. And she's just sort of worked around the model's face.